Okay, so welcome to Red Clean, and there is another question, okay, which we posted on Telegram group. So let's discuss this question. Now, if you see this question again, we have a history suggesting of a 50-year-old male. So by age of the patient is in your middle age. Okay, patient is middle age patient, male patient who is a chronic smoker. It's another important clue that patient has a history of chronic smoking. Employed as a construction worker for past 25 years. Okay, this is the history pertaining to his occupation, that he works in a construction industry, okay, as a worker, probably a labor. So occupation history is given, okay, for past 25 years, and the time is given that for past 25 years he has been working as a construction worker, okay. Now has insidious onset progressive dyspnea for past 1 year. Now the complaints are there. So there's an insidious onset, meaning patient has onset that is little bit chronic or subacute to chronic progressive dyspnea for past 1 year, not subacute, it's chronic only. For past 1 year, he's having dyspnea, breathlessness that is slowly progressive. Okay, progressive. His fingers are clubbed, so it's a physical examination finding of clubbing. Okay, clubbing. Now, pulmonary function test shows a restrictive pattern. Okay, and CT scan is shown below. What is a likely diagnosis? That is a question. So in this question, if you analyze this question, patient is a 50-year-old male. He has been smoking chronically, okay, for although the time has not been given. His occupation has been given as that he's a construction worker, and he has been working like this for past 25 years. Now the complaints are that the patient has chronic dyspnea, okay, which is progressive for past 1 year, with physical findings of clubbing, and pulmonary function test show restrictive pattern. So if you look at the findings of physical examination as well as the pulmonary function test, it looks like that clubbing, okay, in association with restrictive pattern, it suggests to us that these two findings suggest to us that there is an interstitial involvement. Okay, interstitial involvement. Now, due to interstitial involvement, basically respiratory membrane is getting thicker and thicker since past 1 year. Okay, for past 1 year, it has been getting thicker and thicker, which is blocking the exchange of gases in the alveoli, and that must be causing the clubbing due to chronic low-grade hypoxia. Okay, and pulmonary function test showing restrictive pattern goes in favor of this only because the lungs capacity, or FVC if I call it, okay, is reduced. Okay, restrictive pattern means only this thing, that your FEV, what is restrictive pattern? Restrictive pattern is only one thing, that your FEV1 by FVC ratio, it increases due to what? Due to reduced FVC, because your lung capacity decreases. That is what a restrictive pattern is. Okay, so what I could decipher from the information that is given is that there is an interstitial involvement likely to be fibrotic. Why? Because patient has a history of chronic dyspnea. It should not be an acute pathology in which fluid might accumulate, or cells might accumulate. So the interstitial thickening must be due to fibrosis. That is what I could say by looking at the question and reading the question. Okay, now patient has a history of working as a construction worker for past 25 years and the chronic smoker. Now let's look at the options. Okay, what the options says. So if we look at the options, okay, option says that the first option is your smoking related ILD. Okay, smoking related ILD. So here in the first option, they are saying that smoking is a cause, and fortunately, patient is also a chronic smoker. Okay, next option says that it's an idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. Okay, again here fibrosis there, here also fibrosis. Okay, third says asbestos related disease, and fourth says talcosis. Okay, now if you look at the options, these are very close. Okay, they're very close except one. What? That okay, let me tell you. Now if we look at the talcosis first, okay, what exactly talcosis is? So let's discuss each and every option, okay, in detail, and then you will or first look at the image. Okay, first look at the image, because we have not looked at the image yet. Okay, so this is the image of the CT scan, And what I could see at this snapshot is that you can see there are, the prominent finding would be this particular parenchymal bands are there. Okay, you can see there's a parenchymal band here, there's a parenchymal band here, these parenchymal bands, and they're running towards the pleura perpendicularly. That is the first thing that I could see. Now second thing that I would see, that there is subpleural abnormalities are there. Okay, now what those abnormalities are? So subpleural abnormalities, I could see reticulations. Okay, so these are what reticulations, due to obviously fibrosis. So there's a fibrotic reticulations are there, and there are parenchymal bands I could see. Okay, parenchymal bands I could see. And if you see subpleural area, okay, subpleural articulation there, but if you see this area, I think that it goes, it has satisfied a criteria of honeycombing. Okay, so it looks like honeycombing here also, because it is subpleural. Criteria of honeycombing is that it should be subpleural, and minimum criteria should be that there should be 3 cysts in one line. Okay, and on a background of fibrosis. Okay, and they should share walls that are thick, so it looks like honeycombing. Okay, and there are subpleural reticulations are also there. Okay, that's what I could see on this lung window. Okay, and another important finding that I could see is this important thing that you see here, and it appears to be calcified on lung window. Let me confirm that on, soft tissue window as well, that it appears to be a thickened, okay, extra pleural, it appears to be extra lung, or I should say that outside lung. Okay, it appears to be pleural in origin. Okay, that's what I could see in this lung window image. Now look at other. Okay, so this is a coronal view of the same this patient, and if you clearly seen this patient coronal image, that if you compare the, what part of lung, is involved. If you see, right lung is involved more than lung, but more than left lung, but apex are literally relatively spared. And if you see closely, that base of the lungs are more affected than apex. So there is a apicobasal gradient is there. Apicobasal gradient is there, and predominant involvement of lower lobes is there more than upper lobes. Okay, that is one information. Now other findings are the same only. You can see there are multiple parenchymal bands here as well, and you also see, reticulations are there. Okay, and there are areas of cyst. Okay, due to alveolar breakdown probably, that these areas of honeycombing are there. And so what I am dealing with right now is that I am dealing with a fibrotic disease that is involving primarily with the lower lobe. Okay, primarily affecting the lower lobes, and it is causing what? It is causing, the fibrosis has progressed to that extent that it has started showing honeycombing, because honeycombing is something that you see in a later stage of fibrosis. Okay, let's look at another image, that is your soft tissue window. So in soft tissue window, okay, the finding that I saw on the axial lung window image is being confirmed to be pleural in origin, and it appears to be calcified. So it's a calcified pleural thickening. Calcified pleural thickening. Okay. Now, if I ask you one thing, that whether this, why you call it to be pleural thickening? Point is this: why pleura? Why pleura? Why it is not, let's say it? Why it is not involving your intercostal muscle? Because you have intercostal muscles here as well. But why is it so? So important point is that when you want to differentiate whether the origin of this thickening is pleural or its intercostal muscle, always try to look just inner to the ribs. Okay, if I have a thickening here, okay, let's say I have a thickening here. Now this thickening could be due to intercostal muscle as well. But if I have thickening inner to the rib, it is always pleural in origin. Why? Because you do not have muscles inner to the rib. You never have. So anatomically, the muscles are not there. Intercostal muscles are not inner to the ribs. So whenever you look at the pleural thickening, it's look always inner to the ribs. Okay, that is where you will find pleural thickening. And this pleural thickening is calcified also. There might be a possibility that, pleural thickening might not be calcified. Then how will you differentiate? Okay, And okay, how will you differentiate whether it's a pleural thickening? So pleural thickening, they are quite little bit denser than, little, not more, but slightly, they are slightly denser than intercostal muscle. Okay, so you compare their attenuation. Okay, and always if you are able to find a thickening that is inner to the your rib, then it is always and always what, it's a pleural thickening. It cannot be muscle. Okay, another important location that you have to look for pleural thickening is your paravertebral region. Okay, if you have thickening at this location or at this location, that it is a paravertebral location, then it is almost sure that it is pleura that is thickened. Why? Because again, you do not have what, intercostal muscles here. Okay, you do not have intercostal muscles here. So that these are the few points that you have to remember. Okay, so we have a calcified pleural thickening. Okay, that we could see. Now pleura are two. Okay, you have a visceral pleura and you have a parietal pleura as well. So what do you think that it could be? So it's most likely what, a parietal pleura. It most likely is a parietal pleura. Okay, why? Because had it been a visceral pleural thickening, it would have shown on the lung window. Okay, it would have shown on the lung window, and so we saw the lung window. Okay, and what exactly is it is causing that parietal pleural thickening is what pushing the lung inwards. Okay, because why? Because if you see your chest wall, this is your chest wall, let's say, and this is your lung. So your parietal pleural thickening, let me take another color. Okay, okay, so your parietal pleura is stuck, it is stuck to the chest wall. Okay, it's like this. So if there is a thickening of the parietal pleura, okay, it will impinge on the lung, and your visceral pleura is stuck on your lung. Okay, like this. Okay, so if there is a visceral pleural thickening, it will what for one thing is that all mostly the pleural thickening is due to fibrosis. So if there's a visceral pleural thickening, what, it will show up in the lung window. Okay, and more importantly, there will be associated lung fibrosis as well. So if visceral pleural thickening is here, okay, so you will see fibrosis in the lung parenchyma as well. Okay, so we didn't see any such findings in your on the lung window, and we saw a thickening that is impinging on the lung. Okay, and on the soft tissue window, so it's most likely a parietal pleural thickening which is inner to the rib. It is just inner to the rib also, which also suggests that it's basically the finding is there in the chest wall rather than on the lung. Okay, okay, so that is about the imaging findings. So what if I write the imaging findings here? Okay, if I write the imaging findings here, that what exactly I am able to you know get from the image. First thing that I could get from the image is that I have a disease. Okay, I do not know the disease, but this disease, whatever disease it is affecting lower lobes more than upper lobes. One thing. Second thing is that this disease is fibrotic in nature. Okay, so what exactly it is causing, that what are the components of fibrosis? The components are, you have parenchymal bands, okay, which are fibrotic, appear to be fibrotic. Okay, then another thing that you have is reticulations. These reticulations suggest that your interstitium is involved. And third thing that you have is honeycombing, which suggests that the fibrosis is going into advanced stage. So progression of fibrosis. Okay, so this is a disease, lower lobes more than upper lobes, fibrotic. And third thing that I am able to find is pleural thickening. This pleural thickening, and to be precise, it is parietal pleura. Okay, rest of the findings I couldn't see. Okay, I couldn't see any lymphadenopathy or something like that. So these are the three findings that I am getting. Okay, now let's look at the options one by one. We have image and we have history of the patient. Okay, so what exactly it could be, let's try to find out. Okay, so first option that we have is your smoking related ILD. Now if you have not seen my video, that is there on YouTube regarding smoking related ILD, just go and watch it. I have there tabulated, all the five types that are there, five involvement of interstitium that is there associated with the smoking. First involvement is that it can lead to simply what? A UIP pattern. A smoking related ILD can lead to UIP pattern. Okay, or you can say that pulmonary fibrosis, to be precise. But this pulmonary fibrosis is not what idiopathic, because we have a cause here, so it's smoking related. Okay, so if patient is a chronic smoker, patient can develop UIP, and that pulmonary fibrosis is associated with UIP pattern is also with smoking. Second thing can be pulmonary Langerhans cell histiocytosis. Okay, but that is characteristically presented as cyst. There are multiple scattered cysts are there. Okay, that is there in the imaging picture. Okay, I'll discuss it in detail when I'll discuss diffuse cystic lung diseases, okay, in a separate video. But as far as now is concerned, you can just remember, pulmonary involvement of Langerhans cell histiocytosis is associated with cyst. And third, three important entities that I discussed in detail there is your respiratory bronchiolitis related ILD, and finally is your DIP. So these are the three ILDs that I have discussed that in that particular video, in which they are in the order of increasing severity. Okay, increasing severity. And if you remember that these two are differentiated only on the basis of clinical findings, that you have clinical findings in respiratory bronchiolitis related ILD and the patient is asymptomatic in respiratory bronchiolitis. Only differentiating feature is that the clinic features that are absent here and that are present there. Otherwise, both of these, they are presenting as centrilobular nodules, which is ground glass. Typically ground glass, peribronchial, centrilobular nodules scattered. Okay, and predominantly involvement is there. What? In RB, ILD and RB, the predominant involvement is in the upper lobes. Remember this thing, and that is what is the differentiating feature from DIP, desquamative interstitial pneumonia, where predominant involvement is of lower lobes. Okay, but apart from centrilobular nodules, you have centrilobular nodules here as well. You can have other findings like bronchial thickening. Okay, like okay, your interlobular septal thickening. Other finding that you could have in DIP is your GGOs. Okay, you can have GGOs, and you can have consolidation, but that's rare. And later in later stages, every fibrotic disease can present with traction bronchiectasis, your honeycombing in latest fibrotic disease. Okay, so that was about DIP and smoking related ILD. So if you look at the options, yeah, patient is a chronic smoker, but in what particular ILD will put, whether you'll put in pulmonary fibrosis, okay, or whether you put in the patient with pulmonary LCH, or in these three. So definitely patient is symptomatic. Okay, so RB is out. I should use another color here. Okay, so RB is out because patient is symptomatic. Now in RB, ILD or DIP, do we see centrilobular nodules there in the image? No, we didn't see. So it cannot be RB, ILD at all. Do we see? Can it be DIP? I don't think it is DIP. Why? But although there are few features going in favor of DIP, why? Because lower lobes are involved, and I see interlobular septal thickenings are there which could present like reticulations, but there are no GGOs. There is no centrilobular nodules, so it doesn't look like a DIP as well. Okay, and another thing is that because in DIP you will always see centrilobular nodule as a component. Okay, that is why it's not DIP. So DIP is not there. There is no cyst I could see. I couldn't see any cysts that are there. Now these cysts are not cysts related to honeycombing, but these cysts are discrete cysts that are scattered all over the parenchyma, not only in the subpleural area. So that is why such type of cysts were also not there. So it could not be pulmonary Langerhans cell histiocytosis. And definitely one thing that is remaining that it can be is UIP, because if you have understood about what is UIP, okay, let's discuss what is UIP. If you have not seen video on UIP, go and watch it also. If you look at the UIP pattern, okay, it is subpleural, The areas involved are subpleural and lower lobes. Okay. Second important finding in honeycombing is there, and third important is reticulations. These are the findings, three findings that you should always look forward whenever you are going to make a diagnosis of UIP. And once you have these three findings together, you call that patient to be of typical UIP. Typical UIP. Okay, typical UIP. And this UIP pattern, it could be associated with a cause. So a cause may be present or a cause may be absent. That is, you will not be able to find a cause. So if the cause is present, let's say I'm able to get a cause. Example, let's say patient has a SLE. Now I know that this patient has UIP due to SLE. So this becomes a UIP due to a cause. Okay. Similarly, I have smoking here as a cause. So smoking is associated with the UIP. So I can call it to be a smoking related ILD. Definitely it could be smoking related ILD. But what type of ILD it would be? It would be pulmonary fibrosis. So it could be a UIP that is associated with smoking. Okay. If cause is not found, then definitely it is called what? Idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. That is our second option. Okay. So idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis is nothing but it's a clinical syndrome that is associated with UIP histologically as well as radiologically. So yeah, it could be UIP. All these three features are there in our image. It is subpleural, it is lower lobe involvement, honeycombing we saw, reticulation we saw. All three findings are there. Okay, so it goes in favor of UIP pattern. And if UIP pattern is there, then again another thing that we should look for is that whether we have a cause or not. Because if we have a cause, we'll label it to be a UIP due to that cause. But if we do not have cause, okay, then we label it to be IPF. Now we have a cause here, so it could be smoking related ILD. It could be smoking related ILD because UIP is there. Okay, but it cannot be IPF. Why? Because we have a cause. So IPF is simply ruled out in the option. Okay, so second option is ruled out. Smoking related ILD is one thing that you can see or you can have in this patient. Now look at other option, that is your I think third option, that is your asbestos related disease. Asbestos related disease. Now when you have asbestos related disease, first of all understand, and simultaneously I will also discuss about one thing, that is your talcosis. Okay, now these diseases, if you have read them, they come under a category of lung disorders, that is your pneumoconiosis. Now in pneumoconiosis, these are disorders that happens due to occupational exposure primarily, although you can have talcosis from other reasons also, not only occupation. Okay, now when do you have talcosis? What history patient should have, okay, for someone to develop talcosis is what? That he should have an exposure to talc. So exposure to talc is important first of all. And how do the patient develops exposure to talc? Now talc can go into your lung through two routes, either inhalational route or it can go through intravenous route. Now inhalation route is definitely related to occupation of that patient. Okay, if he is involved in mining and that mined rock is contaminated with talc, in that case patient will develop talcosis due to inhalation. But importantly, remember this thing, talc is little bit inert. Okay, but in association with talc there is always component of either silica or asbestos. So the disease that it develops is primarily related to the amount of silica or asbestosis that comes along with it. Okay, so the lung disease that you will see will be in favor of silicosis or asbestosis depending on which is more. If asbestos is more, it will look like asbestosis. If silica is more, it looks like silicosis. Inhalational route. Okay, one thing. Now when do the patient have IV route? Now remember this thing, whenever whenever the patient whenever you see talcosis an option, look for an exposure to either talc, okay, that either mining. But in IV route, patient, if patient is an IV drug abuser, if patient is a IV drug abuser, this patient takes drug with talc powder. Okay, these drug abusers, they take drug, Okay, they inject the drug through intravenous route with talc powder, and this talc powder being inert, so what it happens that this talc powder through intravenous route, it gets into your lung and it's get deposited. An important point is that the involvement of the part of the lung that it goes in your apex or upper lobes. It goes in the apex, it goes in the upper lobes. And important point is also that I told you that it's inert, so it's like a foreign body. It's like a foreign body, and foreign body will what it will incite a immune response. So there'll be foreign body granuloma that will form, and these granulomas can become calcified due to calcium deposition. That is why you will see upper lobe involvement, and there will be multiple there will be large calcified masses that are there in upper lobe that you see in talcosis. Now, upper lobar involvement with calcified masses is another, we have another common causes for that, and that is your silicosis. Silicosis or CWP, that is your coal-worker pneumoconiosis. These two disease, they can present like this because they have upper lobe involvement. Here also upper lobes are involved. We have upper lobes are involved, and in later stage, which we call as progressive massive fibrosis, in that case you will develop multiple, large fibrotic masses primarily involving the upper lobes like this, and these masses will become calcified. So when you have this picture involving upper lobes, okay, with large calcified masses, fibrotic masses, always keep a DD of silicosis and CWP as well with talcosis. The only important information that will differentiate towards talcosis would be the history of IV drug abuser using talc as powder so that it gets deposited into the lung. Another could be that your inhalational route. So I discussed talcosis here. Now the only so it correct by this information that you got just now, you can clearly see that in our question lower lobes are involved more commonly. Okay, there's a picobasal gradient with lower lobes involved more than upper lobes, and I do not see any calcified hyperdense masses that is there in upper lobe. So obviously talcosis is another option that we have ruled out. So we have ruled out talcosis, we have ruled out IPF, we are remaining with smoking related ILD, and we are left with asbestos related disease. Okay, so the last option that we are going to discuss is about your asbestos related disease. Okay, so in your asbestos related disease, okay, what is asbestos first of all? Asbestos is a mineral. Okay, what was talc? Talc was nothing, your magnesium silicate. Is your magnesium silicate. Okay. Similarly, asbestos is what? The asbestos is a, it's basically where do you see asbestos? We see asbestos whenever you have a history of somebody working in construction industry, construction industry, construction industry. Okay, you should always think of asbestos. Okay, you should always think of asbestos if somebody is working in construction industries, because this particular substance is there in your cements. Okay, and other things that are related in tiles also. Tiles are also made of asbestos. Okay, although they have decreased from in last 20 or 30 years, but there are cements and tiles, they have like this. So construction industries, it goes in the favor of asbestos, and we have this in our question as well. Now look at other things. So there are there are multiple types of asbestos we have. We do not need to go into detail of that. Okay, and like there is an amphibole type, serpentine type. Okay, and amphibole type is quite common to cause a disease. Okay, so this asbestos enters in your lungs through inhalational routes. Okay, let's say a worker who is working in a construction industry and he's daily working with cements. So the cement can go into his upper respiratory tract and get into his lungs. And so how it goes? So it goes through your bronchial route, obviously through inhalational route, and so there's a bronchial involvement. Whenever something goes through inhalational route, definitely it will first affect what? Your bronchioles or the airway. Then it leads to what? Alveoli. So the disease will, remember, disease will definitely go from airway to the parenchyma. Okay, so the progression of disease would be like this. And since you have this deposition, if you see asbestos, these are fine thread like particles that get into your lungs. Okay, and there's one type of asbestos also, that is your serpentine asbestosis. Okay, that in which the particle is curved, so it's very difficult for this particle to get into your lungs as well. But let's say if the particle is little bit thinner and it's straight, then it can get like there is in your amphibole type. Okay, anyway, leading it aside, okay, so you have asbestos. Only thing that you have to remember is that the construction industry, if it is mentioned in the question, think of asbestos, okay, as a DD, of the causative agent of the disease. Okay, now another important point is that if patient is, if our patient or the person that is concerned is working in a construction industry, for how many years you need for this asbestos to cause the disease, and that is also very significant. That is why the question mentions that he has been working in construction for past 25 years. So that also is an important information. Why? I'll tell you, because if somebody is working, let's say person starts working at this point of time, and patient has worked for 10 years, or if the patient has worked for 20 years, or if the patient has worked for, let's say, 30 and then 40 years, what all disease he can develop is important to know. The first disease that he can develop, primarily to lung involvement, because inhalation route is involved, although asbestos can affect multi-system involvement also, there is an asbestos, but primarily lungs are involved. So in first 10 years of the involvement, of exposure, the only thing that he can develop, and the earliest finding that he can develop, is your pleural effusion. He can develop pleural effusion. Now this effusion that he develops in 10 years, it most likely is a benign effusion, and it is most likely to be exudative. Why I told that it is benign? It is benign because pleural effusion is also associated with one disease that this patient will develop if he has an exposure of more than 40 years, and that disease, or 20 to 40 years, but it is always more than 20 years. Okay, that disease is your mesothelioma. It's a tumor of your pleura, because it is arising from what? From pleural mesothelial cells. Now this disease, this disease is also associated with what? Effusion. But this effusion that I will call is malignant effusion. Malignant effusion. Okay, so that is why whenever we have effusion in a patient who has history of asbestos exposure, we should rule out mesothelioma, okay, or malignancy as a cause, because pleural effusion in this particular patient. But obviously the amount of exposure, or for how many years he has been working, also gives us a hint. Okay, now that is about this. Now if more than 10 years, or let's say more than 20 years, from 20 to 40 years, let's say, okay, in this particular range of exposure, the disease that patient develop is what? Is your asbestosis. Asbestosis. Now remember this thing, in our option we have asbestos related disease, and I have told you asbestosis. Now asbestos related disease, this term is a broader term. Okay, whatever you develop in relation to asbestos exposure is asbestos related disease. So asbestos related disease includes everything: pleural effusion, okay, mesothelioma, asbestosis, and other things that I'll gonna tell just in a few minutes. So asbestosis is what? It's basically interstitial fibrosis. Interstitial fibrosis, that is there. That is what is asbestosis. Okay, so it's a parenchymal involvement of the lungs that causes interstitial fibrosis, and this interstitial fibrosis occurs in response to asbestos particles that are there. Okay, that are there, which involves, first of all they involve airway, then it ultimately progresses to alveoli. Okay, and a third important thing that is affected here, now here is the involvement of lung pleura. Okay, other important thing that it can do apart from asbestosis is your, is, I should write it here, is your pleural involvement. Pleural involvement. Okay, it's the pleural involvement. So we read about effusion that it will cause in first 10 years, okay, and after 20 years or chronic exposure it can lead to interstitial fibrosis, that is your asbestosis, and also it can lead to pleural disease. Now interstitial fibrosis, again, it's a it's like it's a non-specific interstitial fibrosis, like any other disease, like in UIP. It is like UIP. Remember this thing. It is like UIP pattern, that it will be involving lower lobes and subpleural area. What you see other than this is your reticulations. and these reticulation can definitely lead to traction bronchiectasis because it is fibrosis. It can lead to in later stage honeycombing as well. Okay, and okay, so these are the findings that you see typically in any interstitial fibrosis like UIP it can have. Okay, and these are, remember this thing, since it's an exposure that is happening in bilateral lungs, so that definitely it is bilaterally symmetrical. So we have bilateral symmetry in our question as well. Okay, another important thing that it can have is that goes in favor of asbestosis is one thing, although it can be seen in everywhere, is your parenchymal bands. And these parenchymal bands that are associated with asbestosis, they have a characteristic morphology that these bands are what, if you see these bands in the lung, these bands are very thick and they're going perpendicular to the pleura like this. That is what I show you in the image as well. Okay, these bands, remember this thing, I have not used word fibrotic here. You cannot use this word fibrotic here. Why cannot you use fibrotic? Because this parenchymal band can be due to two things. Either they could be fibrotic or they could be atelectatic. So they could be an immune response causing fibrosis, or they could be what, basically your asbestos particle blocking the airway causing atelectasis. So they could be atelectasis. It could be subsegmental atelectasis also, that could present like a parenchymal band. So it could be fibrosis or atelectatic. That's why it's better to use the word parenchymal band, because we do not know its exact pathogenesis. Okay, parenchymal band. So we can see these parenchymal bands as well in interstitial fibrosis, and that is what is known as asbestosis, a component of asbestos related disease. Okay, asbestosis. Now third important thing that you need to understand is, and that is what is a clinching factor. So far whatever you have understood, interstitial fibrosis or effusion, whatever, we do not have effusion in our question. We have only this, what is shown right now is interstitial fibrosis. That is what we see. Okay, so that is what we have in our question. That is why if patient had patient can be easily confused with a UIP pattern. This patient can be easily confused with a UIP pattern, and that is why when you look at this such case, you should always rule out UIP. But there is one finding, one important finding, that is taking the diagnosis towards asbestos. That is only one finding, and that is a diagnostic feature of asbestosis or asbestos related disease, and that is what I'm going to tell now. So that one finding that is there is your pleural plaque. That is there is your pleural plaque, and that is present, that I shown you in soft tissue window. We discussed how to look for pleural thickenings. So that was your pleural plaque, and that this important finding is taking the diagnosis towards asbestosis. If this finding was not there, and everything remained same in the question, you cannot say that this cannot be due to smoking, because smoking related UIP pattern can present like this only. Okay, and any UIP pattern can present like this only. This is a classic UIP pattern. You are seeing everything, it becomes typical UIP then. Okay, there is no question about that. The only finding that is taking the diagnosis towards asbestosis is the pleural plaque, because involvement of the pleura, the development of pleural plaque is most specific thing for asbestosis. The moment you see pleural plaque, you should ask the patient for a history of asbestos exposure. Okay, and only whenever the question, when they want you to answer asbestosis as an answer, they will give evidence of pleural involvement. So pleural plaque should be the one thing that you should always look for. Otherwise, asbestos, in asbestos related disease, the other findings like effusion, interstitial fibrosis, they are very non-specific. You can find it in multiple other diseases. Okay, the only thing that will differentiate is your pleural plaque. Okay, now this pleural plaque is what, it's basically parietal pleural thickening. It basically is parietal pleural thickening, and I told you that where to look for parietal pleural thickening is where you do not have intercostal muscles for creating a confounding effect. So you should look them into inner to ribs. Inner to ribs is the area that you look for, or if you have it in your paravertebral region, then it is fine, that it goes only in favor of parietal pleural thickening. Otherwise you can confuse it with involvement of your intercostal muscle as well. So that is one thing. Now another important point that I would like to tell is that these plaques can be small or large. Okay, these plaques can be small or large. So when these plaques become very large, that is large plaques. Then we have a term for them, that is your diffuse pleural thickening. Diffuse pleural thickening. And remember this thing, this diffuse pleural thickening has a criteria. What is the criteria? The criteria is that if you have an axial image, if you have this axial image, then or let's say I'll show you on the image only. Okay, let's say this is the pleural plaque. Okay, if you are dealing with an X-ray, okay, on X-ray, the lung involvement due to this pleural plaque should be more than or equal to 25%. Okay, that if 25% of the lung fields are affected, more than 25%, then we call this plaque as diffuse pleural thickening. Okay, diffuse pleural thickening. But that is on X-ray. On CT, you have to take measurements. On CT, you will take one measurement, that is your craniocaudal measurement, and other measurement that you see is on axial section, and this measurement is along the chest wall. This measurement is along the chest wall. This measurement which I just marked, this measurement, and other measurement would be on the will be the craniocaudal measurement. So definitely that measurement has to be in coronal view. It cannot be shown in this way. Okay, so this has to be in the coronal view. For this measurement should be 8 into 5 centimeter. Remember this thing. Okay, now what is 5 and what is 8? That is important. So your involvement should be, that this involvement, this your craniocaudal involvement should be 8, and this your axial section along the chest wall should be 5, and that is what is your this criteria is for to call it to be a diffuse pleural thickening on CT. On X-ray it is more than 25%. Another important point is that when we discuss this pleural thickening on chest X-ray, okay, this pleural plaque, let's say this is your chest X-ray, and this is your lung field. Because you see X-ray, where do you see pleural plaques most commonly? Pleural plaques, where exactly you have? So you have pleural plaques. Remember, these locations are posterolateral thoracic wall and diaphragmatic pleura. And let's say this is your diaphragm. Okay, so you will have plaque either here in this pleura is involved, okay, or this diaphragmatic pleura is involved, okay, or you will have somewhere here like posterolateral thoracic wall, somewhere here. Okay, now there is a possibility that, let's say this is your chest, so if posterolateral wall is there, okay, now there's two possibility. When you take an X-ray, the pleural plaque, let's say this, if you take an X-ray, pleural plaque can be either you see it in face, or either you see them is in profile view. Profile view means basically you see them in a side view. The appearance will change. If you see them in a side view, like this plaque, just I drawn like this, okay, this plaque is a side view because it is situated in the lateral wall. So it will appear like this, and it will be inner to rib. Okay, so it has to be inner to the rib only. That is what is the identification of this plaque. It has to be inner to the rib only, then only it will become a, it should suggest you a plaque that is pleural in origin. Otherwise it could be muscle also. So that is a profile view that is shown, but there is a possibility that it could be in face. Let's say anteriorly, plaque is situated anteriorly. So when you take an X-ray, it would be situated overlying the lung fields, and you may confuse it to be a nodule that is there in the lung. So the appearance of the plaque is a differentiating factor, because nodule would be round, it will be well defined, or even if it is ill defined, it will be the appearance of plaque would be geographic in location like this. This plaque would be geographic in location in your shape, okay, in shape, and it would be what? It would be irregular, okay, it would be irregular in shape, geographic in shape, but it will be well defined. Okay, so that is why, and that is why you may confuse it with the nodules. So we have a special view we have a special view to look for the pleural plaques. Why we have a special view? Because the most common location of this plaque is posterolateral thoracic wall, so that if you take an oblique view, okay, then you are able to see these plaques which you see on PA view as inner to ribs. You will able to see them in face, because if you take a view obliquely, okay, you will be able to see them in face. Lateral plaques you will be able to see them in face, and then you will be able to confirm that the plaque was pleural in origin. Okay, so that is one thing. Then next important thing is, so I told you about the plaques, okay, what are the views that you take, okay, and what is the most common location of these plaques, okay, so they involve posterolateral. What are the areas that are spared also, that is also important. So in apex you will not see plaque, in costophrenic angles you will not see plaque, okay, these are the areas that are spared, so sparing is there in these areas, okay. So these are the important findings that you see in pleural plaques or pleural thickenings, okay. So that is about the asbestosis. Now look at the, again go back at the questions that we discussed. So in the questions that we discussed, this was a question, okay, this was a question, and in this question you can clearly see that we ruled out idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis because we have a cause here. So word idiopathic is simply taking this option away from us. Now talcosis, I remember, you remember upper lobar involvement with history, which is not there, history is not there, upper lobar involvement is not there, okay, and which goes against this, and the imaging findings are simply against talcosis. Now what it could be, it could be smoking related ILD, and what type of ILD? ILD would be pulmonary fibrosis, or basically UIP pattern that it can cause, okay, or it could be asbestos related disease. Now if you see the history, again we have a history of worker that is there in construction industry for past 25 years. The exposure is also significant. If I tell you that that he has been working in this construction industry for past 5 years, you will not expect this patient to develop this disease due to asbestos. Then in that case the diagnosis will more likely be smoking related ILD, because he has been smoking for past quite a long time. Then he has been working for in construction worker, as a construction worker for past 5 years. So the exposure to smoking is more than asbestos. So this part of disease is most more, will be more associated with smoking rather than asbestos. But here we have 25 years, so the diagnosis goes in favor of asbestos with this kind of exposure. I told you all the timelines of the findings that they will develop. Now you have another important finding that you have is that patient is employed as a construction worker for past 25 years. So we have a history of exposure, we have a history of exposure, and more importantly the finding that we have is a pleural plaque. We have pleural plaque. I showed you pleural plaque there also, that so this pleural plaque and history of exposure, which is significant in time, that it is more than for near about 25 years, is taking the diagnosis towards asbestos, okay. And uh, we are negating smoking related ILD. Why it cannot be smoking related ILD? Due to the presence of pleural plaque only, because patient is a chronic smoker, so it was a confuser that smoking related ILD could have been an option, okay. Or so that was it. And this is the pleural plaque that you can again see. So this is your pleural plaque, okay, which I described. So it is inner to the rib, it is calcified, okay, which suggests it's pleural, and it's around so it's little bit anterior. So when you will get an X-ray for this plaque, the rays will go like this, and it will appear like an in-face plaque. You will see this geographic location, okay. That's what it is, okay. So that was all about this question. I think we discussed a lot about this. So thank you, and keep showing your support like you always did, and thank you.